everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful day. And wherever it is that you're joining us from around the world, thank you as always for all of your support. We appreciate all the likes, the shares, the follows. Thank you so much for engaging with our content, sharing our content. And thank you so much just for, sharing your comments with us. You know that we do what we do for you because we love to bring you these amazing conversations so that way we may continue to grow professionally and personally as well. And I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you so much, Book Creator, Eduate, Yellow Dig, and Peelback Education. Thank you so much for believing in our mission so we can bring these great conversations into our education space. And I am excited to welcome back two guests. Now, one guest, Eric Tao, the last time he was on our show was back on September 12th, 2023, when he just introduced me to this amazing platform, his amazing platform that they're going to be talking about today, which is MegaMinds. So I'm really excited to see all of those updates since 2023. And our co-guest, or the next guest, I should say, and we can all be co-hosts too as well. So we'll say the next co-host here is Austin Levinson, who was just on the show about 5 episodes ago, but this time you're listening to him in English. So thank you both for being here on this wonderful evening. It's a nice chilly evening here in South Texas. Hopefully the weather is nice wherever it is, where you're joining us from Colombia. And Eric, where is it that you're joining us from?
New Jersey, and unfortunately, it's rain and sleet out right now.
Oh, New Jersey. So it's really cold out there. But
Yes.
I am excited about today's conversation because, again, MegaMinds 2 years ago is when I first found out about it. And it was just great, the immersive learning in that space. But today we get to see a little bit more updates that are happening as far as the learning is concerned. So I'm really excited about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. But before we get really, really into the meat of it, Eric, for our audience members who may not be familiar with your work just yet, or they haven't listened to episode 230 yet, can you give us a little brief introduction and what your context is within the ed tech space?
Sure. Okay. My name is Eric Tao. I'm the founder and CEO of MegaMinds. MegaMinds is an AI-powered learning platform that puts students inside immersive simulations with little AI characters. They're sort of like, we call them NPCs. They're little video game characters that the students interact with within this immersive environment. And we can program the AI to act as guides, as tutors, as mentors, as co-workers, as bosses, and you'll get a little taste of that a little later. But as far as my background goes, I'm not an educator, although I was raised in a family of educators. So my mother was an English teacher. My father was a university professor. My wife has worked for New York City schools for the past 15 years. But I have a tech background. So I worked at Google about a decade ago, very closely with the VR team. And we invented some really powerful technology at the time, some of which trickled its way into what we're going to show you later. But it was basically link-based immersive experiences,
Okay.
a way to, and this was back in 2016. So it was 4 years prior to the pandemic, I recognized at the time we were doing kind of silly things. We were doing like virtual field trips. Right around this time, 2016, I took a VR camera down Fifth Avenue and filmed like Tiffany's and Macy's Windows displays, and we put them into this technology that we'll show you as like a virtual field trip. But the whole time I was thinking there's way more powerful things that we could do, and naturally my mind always went to education and what we could do there, and that's sort of the beginning of the pathway that led us to today.
Nice. Excellent. So that's great. And so for our audience members, you heard it. Great background. Eric's got a lot of experience. And really, honestly, I can't wait for you, our viewers that are going to be watching the video, but even our listeners, even when you get to hear the demo of MegaMinds, you're going to be blown away by the work that Eric and Austin are doing. So Austin, for our audience members that are catching you for the first time, getting to know you, can you give us a little brief background and what your context is within the education space?
Sure. Thanks, Alfonso. And it's a pleasure to be here again. I am an educator. I was a classroom teacher for about 20 years. and I developed STEAM programs. I developed gifted and talented programs. I was big into PBL, design thinking. I was always thinking about engagement. That was always, I always thought that, there were teachers who had all their T's dotted and I's crossed, but really weren't as engaging, didn't have the charisma to really reach the students. And they were like teaching with one hand behind their back. And so I always spent a lot of time focusing on and thinking about how to bring that enthusiasm, that excitement, and that energy, and give the students the center of the learning experience. That was always what I did as a classroom teacher. And now I've got the opportunity to do that with MegaMinds. And so it's been a great pleasure to bring some of my ideas about creativity, about many of the facets of critical thinking, and about metacognition into an immersive learning space that really gives students agency in a way that very few things can. They really are at the helm of their experience. And I think that right now, in the end of 2025, the world that we're living in, anybody goes out to a restaurant, even to a soccer game, a baseball game, you see people buried in their phones. And so to try to engage students right now is harder than ever. People have been in education for as long as I have, and even less time, see that over time, it's harder and harder to engage them. And so that, I'd say, to call it an engagement crisis is something that we've got to find smarter and more interesting and more unusual and more innovative ways to capture their attention to be able to foster incredible learning growth.
Excellent. I love all of that. And that's why I'm excited about today's show, because I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about MegaMinds. But before we get into it too, as well, it's like, you mentioned, and Eric at the very beginning, and Austin, something, Eric, you working in that EdTech background, talking about, immersive technology, AR, VR. And then, of course, now we're talking about AI in education, whether it's generative AI. And Austin, on LinkedIn, that's really all the conversation. You're always joining in those chats too, and always have some wonderful things to say. But as we're entering now, like you mentioned, I think there's going to be a new phase, and I think what we're seeing now and what you're doing through MegaMinds is definitely something that is going to be very different, because usually now we're seeing a lot of productivity tools for teachers. So it's a lot of teacher facing tools. There are some student facing tools, but again, it's really, the engagement is a little different. And I know, Austin, you talk about engagement where really it's what the student puts in, then they get an output, they get feedback, and so on. But one thing that you mentioned, Austin, was student agency and the importance of that, and how to hook the learner and find a different and innovative way to do that. And like Eric and you, through the work of MegaMinds, I think that we are going to start seeing the shift in that immersive technology now, where the students can be in it, in the learning, and have that student agency as well. But I want to ask you, and I'll start with you, Austin, how do you see this transition unfolding maybe in this coming year, 2026? And where does MegaMinds fit in that transition?
Well, we were speaking to somebody just today who was telling us that agency, or actually engagement, has really become a bigger problem this school year than it has ever been before. And she noticed that, and this is in a virtual school setting, it's a really massive problem. And a lot of the platforms that exist, there might be a slide deck, there might be videos that they watch, there may be some graphics or point-based things, but how much of that is really gamifying it? I think the students, an astute middle school student, and especially some disenfranchised ones or ones with ADHD or other neurodivergent, situations, they're seeing through that, or they're not really getting hooked by it. It's not really working over time. And so the immersive experience, and until you really try it, until you've played or been inside a video game and feel that excitement of exploring, of looking around, of moving around, of discovery. And the interesting thing is that it feels like a game. It looks like a game. The controls are like a game, and it's definitely not a game, MegaMinds. It's definitely very intentional in its learning goals, in its purpose, and it's the scaffolding that's in place because of the AI tutors. And that's what we're going to show you. But the AI companions that are within that immersive space, that combination is something that propels it into a different playing field in terms of engagement and in terms of students wanting to be there.
Excellent. Now, Austin, like I like that view that you're coming in from that pedagogical sense as well. But now, Eric, turning to you on the ed tech side of this, you have been living within this ed tech space, like you mentioned, your background working with Google and the work that you've done prior to pandemic with AR, VR, immersive technologies, and now with MegaMinds. So, from your perspective, I know you're gonna be pretty in deep as far as seeing trends and the changes that are occurring. So I want to ask you, how do you see this unfolding in 2026? And again, the same question that I asked Austin, how do you see MegaMinds fitting into that from your perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So my perspective is always going to lean towards the technological. And what I saw with AI in education, it's not far from what we saw with AI in really any field. The first companies were basically picking the low-hanging fruit, right? So they were creating wrappers around LLMs to use the generative tools to make productivity tools. But the key thing I think to take into account is those tools were designed for for what LLMs do best, not necessarily for pedagogy or for what to for how students learn. It was, what can an LL do that can make a teacher's job easier? Oh, it can generate a quiz with the press of a button. You can now generate a slide deck with the press of a button. That was, you can map that across every field: photography, for graphic design. That was the first layer of AI companies. I think what we're seeing now is a shift into phase two, where phase two companies are taking, I don't know if creative is the right word, but a more unique approach to incorporating AI to really affect pedagogy, not only AI that interact with students, but also what's happening on the back end. So agents have the remarkable ability to make sense of massive amounts of data, right? So when you're talking about MegaMinds, you're talking about a 3D space, right? On a typical learning platform, you're able to serve up insights via clicks, time between clicks, and student inputs. And that's really all the data that you have to really get insights from for the teacher. In our environment, we have the whole 3D room. We have what the student is doing in the 3D room, where they're looking, who they're talking to. All of that can be collated together and form insights that can be served to the teacher. And we can get into that a little bit later. So I think one of the things that we do is we focus on skills. We don't focus on tools. For number one, for us, it's about letting students use AI in a productive way. It's, let's use AI to help them develop their critical thinking skills. Unfortunately, we don't believe that that's possible in the text interface. We actually think that the text interface is not productive for learning, and that it is counterproductive, and that it can lead to shortcuts. It can lead to cheating. So for us, it's about finding unique approaches towards AI. And as I mentioned, the second way we go about it is making teachers, giving them the information and the insights to be even more efficient and more effective at their jobs. Mm-hmm. For us, it's not about generating content for them. It's about using AI as a way to surface the data that they need, that they simply never had access to before. And then let's watch the sparks fly when they know that one of their that Jimmy is doing really well in this area, but not so well in this area, and they know that instantaneously. That's a game changer.
Yeah. And to add to that, if I may, and I think it also, the holy grail for many years when I was a teacher, and I think still exists, is differentiation. It's like this holy grail. It's extremely difficult. People who say, I've got it, they probably don't have it, because it's a moving target. The students are going to change. And so to have all of that information, that we get much richer data than in just a text-based interface, having all that data gives the teachers actionable information to be responsive teachers, right? I think we've heard a lot about this in progressive education circles. We want to be responsive to student needs. We don't want to just follow the curriculum. We talk about fidelity. Fidelity to what? To a curriculum or to the student needs? To the student needs. And so if we want to do that, we're providing the teachers with the real fodder that they can use to personalize, to differentiate, to form small groups. And it keeps the teacher always at the center of the experience. That human element is ever important in MegaMinds, and it really is the key to the student success.
I love that. Yeah, and you hit on so many great points, both of you, that I kind of want to just pull a little bit of strands here. And so, like you mentioned, Eric, one thing that I loved is that you're focusing on the skills, not the tools. And what we're seeing again, obviously from 2022, everything or a lot of the platforms that are out there are very text based. Again, teachers, like you mentioned, are able to generate, worksheets, presentations, and so on. And then on the student side of it too, it's just very text driven. There are some companies out there that are, you're taking that creative approach in putting in, some bots and so on. But the fact of the matter, it's just really still seems like substitution in the sense of, going from paper to a digital document, but then you're still going to get that digital answer back. But the difference that I do see through MegaMinds, and again, because I first heard about it in 2023, and what I've seen that I loved about it was that immersion into the learning, where it's pretty much sort of can be like a choose your own adventure. You're engaging the student and they're still going to be learning in a way that makes sense, which takes me back to what Austin was saying. I was having a conversation earlier today with one of our content specialists for mathematics. And, being an assessment, I see data all the time and I paint the picture that the data gives me and present that. And oftentimes it leads to, showing us where the areas of deficiencies are. And like you mentioned, the important part about it is it's not necessarily that maybe the curriculum would be deficient, but it could be that maybe in this particular module or unit or standard, maybe, Dr. Fonz doesn't understand the concept in that way. And so the data tells me the story. Is it the teacher? Maybe, maybe not. Is it the student? Well, maybe if it's the student, how else might we present that teaching for them, like you mentioned, and be responsive, as opposed to just, hey, here's the curriculum, stick with it, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on to this. We need to be able to make that shift and adapt to our student learning. So I think that the way that you describe this is something that really gets me excited. And especially now, gentlemen, and I had Mark Essex on the show a couple of episodes back, and he's got a book called Captivate. And his big thing is the attention span of students, due to them being on social media and TikTok and things of that sort, where you really only have 3 to 5 seconds to hook them and engage them. So one of the things that I want to ask about here is, from your experience, obviously working through MegaMinds, the immersive experience that you offer, how do you see the students and in their experience engaging or actually re-engaging in the learning based on their experiences with Fortnite, Roblox, TikTok, social media? So I'll start with you, Austin. What have you seen? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so I think first it's important to note that if you expect there to be a magic bullet, they still have to put forth effort, and we want them to put forth effort. If there's not thinking involved, and I could just go through this and I'm just going to go through this room and I'm just going to magically learn. No, there's still thinking required, and it needs to be framed in that way, right? But the experience is going to be vastly different. And one of the biggest ways is when I think about my experience with many of my students and over the years, I always had a classroom norm around ask for help. And we tried to create a culture of a safe space to ask for help. And it's difficult to ask for help. If I'm 13 years old and my friends are in the classroom, how likely is it that I'm going to raise my hand and ask for help? It's hard for many adults to ask for help. The key with the AI companions within the immersive space is that it's a safe space to ask for help. There's no judgment. They're going to be able to ask for help, and they're able to get help in their zone of proximal development, depending upon where they are. And they're going to feel safe doing so again and again. And that's something that is hard to quantify, but is worth gold. I mean, that touches right into the social emotional components of learning that are impeding a lot of learners from progressing, and it's impeding the teachers from getting the information eventually as well, because they're not going to get the information right away either. And the affective filter, for those who are familiar with Stephen Krashen, who I'm a big devotee of, the affective filter for language acquisition stops people from wanting to speak, from wanting to ask questions, from wanting to get help. So that's, for me, such a big component that we're really providing that safe space. And that's a major inclusive element and accessibility element for a wide range of learners, which is so important.
I love that. Now, Eric, onto you, especially on the tech side of things. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, being within the experiences itself, the teachers being able to see maybe, and like Austin was saying, those areas of struggle that
Yeah.
the students may have, but now they have that companion that they can easily ask a question to.
Yeah.
So, how about yourself? What is it that you have seen, how, or that you have experienced, also how MegaMinds is engaging or re-engaging students in their learning?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity, I think, to tell our little story about an intervention study that we did in the spring with a Title I school in Florida. So I actually met the head of the school at FETC in January, and I showed her an early prototype of our AI companions in the worlds, and she was very impressed. So she called me up in March and was like, "Hey, I have a cohort of students who are way behind in math. In fact, there were a group of 8th and ninth graders, and 0% of them were at grade level. In fact, 83% of them were 2 grade levels or more behind." And she said, "I'm going to do an intervention with them, and I want to offer you an opportunity. I know you have a middle school math, bundle. Would you like to participate?" And I said, "Of course. This sounds like an amazing opportunity." So now these are teenagers now. They were 8th and ninth graders who, through no fault of their own, at the beginning of the pandemic, when they were supposed to be learning foundational math skills in 4th and 5th grade, they never got the opportunity to. Maybe they didn't have devices. Maybe they didn't have internet access. This is Title I, school, and through no fault of their own, those learning gaps stayed with them, and so they're now teenagers, and they believe that that are not good at math, just not math people. Okay. By the end of the semester, so in June, we got the results back. 67% of the students who used MegaMinds got to grade level, and only 22% of those in the control group using regular intervention techniques were able to get to achieve the same. So Austin and I were able to do a 2-hour download with the teacher and with a number of the students, and we kept hearing the same thing over and over and over. And that was, I could practice with the AIs. I could say, I don't understand it. The AIs would level to them and try to explain it in a different way. The idea of productive struggle, the idea that they felt safe to talk to an AI, whereas these are kids they're not going to raise their hand in class. They were not going to be active participants in class, but in our environments, they felt safe to. And not only that, but they felt compelled to come back. It wasn't a one and done thing. They came back to the modules. When they needed to study for a test or they needed to work through something that they felt they were weak at, they would go and they would work with the AIs. Now, combine that with how our teacher approached it. So she said she would sit back. She would spend the first half of the class period doing her mini lesson, and then she would assign the students into MegaMinds for the second half. And then she would open her laptop, and then on her dashboard, you can just see all the students working away, and all the data is coming back to her in real time. So she can see the second one of the AI's reports to her, okay, Jimmy is having problems with this word problem over here. She would walk over and go, "Hey, I see you're having a problem with this word. Well, can I help you understand the concept?" Should she be able to fill that learning gap immediately? Or if she saw like a group of her students having the same problem, she would prepare a new mini lesson for the next day that helped fill that gap. So that, I don't know that's been possible before. Otherwise she would have to wait 2 weeks for the quiz and then have to, spend a day going through the results of the quiz to figure out, to arrive to her own conclusions on who needs help with what.
Yeah.
Now it's served to her immediately. And it's not just the conversation that it's taking the data from. It's all of the activity that the student's doing in that 3D room. Like I said, it's that wealth of activity that it is just, AI is the only thing that could sort through all of that to generate those insights that are so powerful for her. So in her own words, it made her a more productive, a more effective, and a more efficient teacher. Go ahead, Austin.
And that loop between teaching, assessment, and then that formative assessment guiding your instruction, that loop is as tight as possible because the interactions provide immediate information that the teachers can act upon within minutes. And in a typical classroom, how could a teacher observe what 30 students are doing? Are they working through the slide deck, or are they looking at something else? Are they actually answering the questions? It's impossible to do that. Yet with MegaMinds, and we have a feature now where we're asking reflection and metacognition questions. One teacher said that by getting a metacognition, really there's one AI that's asking metacognition questions about, what are you still struggling with? What were your biggest gains in this module? What are some ways this connects to the real world? By getting the AI to ask those questions and the teachers get them on the dashboard, it's like the teacher interviewing every student at the end of class every day, which is obviously impossible. It's no longer impossible. We've made the impossible about giving feedback to the students and the teacher possible through the use of these AI-powered immersive spaces.
Behind every classroom door, there's a story of patience, creativity, and the quiet power of shaping the next generation. Peel Back Education shines a light on these lived experiences, the real voices of educators on the front lines. Don't just subscribe to Real Voices, discover them, connect with them, and maybe even share your own too. Visit peelbackeducation.com to discover the stories shaping education and the people just like you living them every day.
And I think that's very important because, like you said, that to me is worth gold in itself. I mean, I remember my days in the classroom and, of course, trying everything, going from paper exit tickets just to see, just little checks for understanding in that sense. And then all of a sudden that stack just becomes very ominous on my desk. And then saying, okay, now I'm going to do it digitally. Well, then now I had a digital stack of Google form responses and things of that sort that I still have to filter through and so on. And of course you do that. But the fact that I love that while they are doing their lesson, you get to see as a teacher from the dashboard, see those specific areas that the students, I should say, might be struggling with. And I love what Eric said. Immediately, I get a cue. I can go to that student and then I can either fix that misconception that they might be having, or like you said too, as well, seeing a group of students that might be having the similar issue. And then I can say as a teacher, okay, maybe I need to explain it differently and just have that reteach moment right then and there. But it's all with intention. And one thing that I love that Eric said too is, like, I remember having to sift through all those papers or giving a quiz and then having to grade and then, say, you know what, I'll grade this tomorrow. By the time I finish that quiz, it's already 2 days after, and my students don't get that feedback that they need to get immediately. And now through MegaMinds, that makes things so much easier through that dashboard, which I think, like I said, it's definitely worth its weight in gold, and it's something that's wonderful there. The next thing, though, that I do want to talk about, because I know that this was something that is of interest to me, and I've been kind of riding this CTE train, the fact that now you are including CTE lessons within MegaMinds, I think is fantastic. And one of the things that we often hear, or that I would often hear, not only from my district, but other colleagues that work at other districts, is obviously it's always, man, CTE is so expensive. You've got to buy these materials, you've got to buy these welders, you've got to buy, whatever it is that you're doing for wood shop, for, for nursing and things of that sort. So what might be some creative ways that we can save some money with that? Well, having an immersive experience. So I want to ask you, since CTE really lends itself to immersive experiences, I want to ask you, as far as your simulations that you offer, what kind of feedback or results have you seen from your students? And this time I'll start with Eric.
First off, you might think, okay, they've had success in math, CTE. What is the connection between math and CTE? Well, the connection is the value of safe spaces for practice, low stakes space for practice. That's the through line. That's the value proposition that we give to students. It applies whether you're learning math, it applies whether you're learning languages, it applies whether you're learning CTE, going on a job interview, practicing. We have a job center where students can practice six or seven different job interviews with different roles in different fields. You want to learn the trades, you can go talk to the foreman. You want to learn to be an educator, go talk to the principal. You want to learn to be an IT guy, go talk to the programmer. and you practice, and you learn about the trade, and you learn about what is needed in that specific area by talking to the AIs. And again, you're practicing this in a low stakes way before you have to go out and do it for real. So that's the key value proposition. I think that applies to whether you're doing CTE, whether you're doing math. Now, as far as like saving money, like you mentioned, so we have simulations that take place in a clothing store where you're practicing a retail role, and your job is to learn how to talk to an angry customer. So you're learning soft skills, in that way. You're learning how to de-escalate. We have a coffee shop. We have a hospital floor. We have, a construction site. We have areas where we can put students into simulations where I don't know where they would get that ability to have that experience, to be a nurse in a hospital doing triage with a bunch of patients. How's that possible? But that's an experience that we can give students. And for those, again, it's about teaching the soft skills. It's about developing bedside manner, being able to prioritize, who is the sickest patient, to be able to go back and report to the MD. So I think that is the ability to give, work-based experiences through simulation in this manner is rather unique. And you're right. I think it can offer a lot of cost savings in a lot of areas for CTE programs.
Excellent. Well, I know that we do have a demo. I don't know, Eric, if you want to pull that up, but Austin, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I was just going to say that if as a listener, I'd be thinking, okay, this all sounds interesting. What is this about? So I think it would be a great opportunity to take a look. So that is a perfect segue, Alfonso.
Yeah, no, perfect.
First, I guess are you guys able to see the screen?
Yes.
So what you're looking here is our stack of modules and CTE and all of the different pathways that we're able to hit with these simulations. And I'll jump into I want to show you that triage one that I was just talking about. So this is the hospital floor. Every one of our modules kind of opens here with a mission brief or a mission overview. Here it sets up that you're a head nurse. There are 4 patients waiting for you. You have to talk to the patients and assess their situations and decide on an order of treatment before reporting back to the physician. And here's your little shift briefing where you learn about the symptoms that each patient is having. And then you go in and actually talk to the patients.
Hey, can someone help me? I don't feel right. My chest, it's really tight, like someone's sitting on me. I'm sweating a lot, and my arms feel weird.
Jenny, are you okay? When did you start feeling these symptoms?
About 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes ago. And it's getting worse.
What do you think it's something you ate potentially?
I don't know. I think it's more serious. My chest, it's tight. And can you help me?
Yes, absolutely. Just hang tight, okay? I'll go grab the doctor. Just sit tight, okay? We'll be with you in a moment.
So what's happening is, the opportunity to actually practice. Now, when let's say a 10th grader, 15, 16 years old, goes through this, they might have no idea how to do this. And it might take 2 or 3 tries. They have the opportunity to go back and revisit it because they might not hit it the first time. Now, the critical thinking involved after the student speaks with all 4 patients, they have to now think about how they're going to prioritize. They're going to talk to the doctor about that. So the experiential learning is so potent here that they're really going to get an opportunity to go through that process as if they were a head nurse, as if they were working with that doctor. And that you're just not going to get there with a video, with slide decks, with some of the other types of things. Now, in a work-based learning experience, you could certainly see what goes on in the hospital, but to get into that thinking process, it's a perfect complement for some of those hands-on and on-site location experiences where they get a chance to go through some of that thinking, the soft skills, the bedside manner, that empathy piece. There's a lot here that's really beneficial for the student in terms of life skills.
Howdy, y'all. It's Farmer Fobbs from Book Creator. Now listen up, partner. If you're wrangling lesson plans and trying to keep your students engaged, I got just the tool for you. Now remember, Every student and teacher deserves a yeehaw moment, and Book Creator can give you just that. Book Creator makes it easy to get your students creating, collaborating, and sharing their ideas all in one place. Book Creator turns any classroom into a digital frontier, whether it's interactive notebooks, portfolios, or good old storytelling. Now, did I tell you it plays nice with all the other favorite apps? Egg smash it. I mean app smash it with Adobe, Google, and much more to take creativity to greener pastures. So saddle up and give it a try. Use promo code MyEdTechLife for a 3-month special treat.
Now, for our audience members that are listening to the show, guys, I mean, you're missing out. I mean, this is a great simulation that we're seeing here through MegaMinds. And I mean, if you get to catch this on video, please do so. But I mean, you're actually in a hospital. You got to see a gurney. There was a patient. You're speaking and interacting with the patient. And then, of course, now you have to go to a desk where it'll ask you, once you speak, like Austin said, once you speak to those 4 patients, learning how to prioritize. And the first thing that I thought of is many of the CTE programs that do offer, nursing and things of that sort. Really, I understand that they'll do the hands-on as far as, putting in an IV or maybe learning how to draw blood, but they really, can't talk to a mannequin and the mannequin's going to reply to them, saying how they feel. Maybe they can role play amongst students, but then sometimes there isn't that level of seriousness because it's, hey, you're there with your friend, your peer, and, you'll go through the motions. But to be able to see what I saw there and the patient really also going, I mean, you can literally hear the breathing and the way that they're answering. That really takes that learning to another level where now, like you mentioned, the student has to have a heightened sense of alertness and remember what they learn, have those critical thinking skills, have those soft skills, like you mentioned, communication wise as well. And then, like you said, the ability to go back and say, okay, which of these cases is going to be my priority? And that was just in this short period of time. And I'm just blown away by this. This is fantastic, Eric.
I think the thing to also consider is role playing is not scalable. You have to have, if you're the teacher, you have to do a role play with 30 students. That's going to take more than a single class period. One of our first customers was District 75 in New York City, and that was the thing that they mentioned was that before us they would have to role play with every single one of their students. That's just not a scalable. Not only is it not very realistic to the student, but it's just not a scalable experience. How many students can you get through in a class period? But here you could have all of the students just up and running immediately and into these simulations.
And the other thing, like you mentioned too, through the teacher dashboard, the teacher is able to see, where the student is at and maybe those scenarios where they may be struggling.
That's
and
right.
again, they're working towards that, the communication skills, maybe using the proper vocabulary for that particular symptom or for that particular procedure, as you know. And I mean, I can only guess that when you are in there in real life, under all that pressure, I mean, you've got so many things that you're thinking about, but this will give that student that heightened sense of the reality of what it would be like to be tending to a patient, and then obviously trying to remember at the same time all the vocabulary, the procedures, and so on. So I think that this really brings that learning to life in that wonderful immersive space that, again, to me and for the listeners, I mean, just in that short period of time, you can actually see how powerful this can be for your students. Austin, anything you'd like to add to this?
Well, I love what you said about the heightened sense. I mean, that's getting into the science of learning. And for those of us who have spent time with the attention piece and with really getting that engagement piece in, that they have some sense of urgency, that there's something real happening, that there's information they need to collect. I mean, there's just no substitute for that. There's to get to that level of the student feels like they have to be serious about this because this is that kind of a situation. If it was in an agricultural cluster and they're thinking about, based upon the weather conditions and what happened last year, what they're gonna plant this year and why, and they're gonna have a chance to speak with an agronomer or whoever it may be, those different roles. It's just there's that sense of I mean, the simulation, mimicking reality, and thinking about what the people in those professions are really going to need to think about in terms of that critical thinking. There's a kind of a mix between critical thinking and empathy that is very powerful for the students, and it really ties directly to what's going to make them excited about being in the space and revisit the space.
Excellent. That's wonderful. I'm going to kind of turn to, or this is a nice segue, because a lot of people talk about AI literacy. And I just really had to stop and pause a little bit on that, because I just had an episode that we recorded, and I felt, and we were talking about how everybody talks about AI literacy and they mention it. There's so many posts about it, but it's just one of those phrases that I hear and I'm like, which definition is going to come up next? Which definition? Because everybody has a different way of learning or thinking that AI literacy should be learned. But I want to ask you, because I know that through MegaMinds, you do offer a way to teach AI literacy, but in 3D per se, in an immersive way, rather than just getting the natural overview or normal overview of slides or a video. So tell me a little bit about that. Eric, we'll start with you. Where did that idea come from, and what can students actually do and see to be engaged and actually learn AI literacy in a hands-on way per se?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess first, so we can talk about as a concept, and how districts are going about adopting it, and AI literacy is going to be table stakes to get a job. Kids today in 5 years, by the time they're graduating in the 30s, we don't even know what the job market's going to look like. But what we do know is that the majority of the tasks are going to be informed by AI, and you're going to need to know how to work with AI, and you're going to need to know what AI is good at and what it's not good at. One of the ways that and I can screen share it. Why not? One of the ways that we do it, that the 3D environment allows for, is again to put the students into these simulations. So this is a virtual simulation on AI ethics. Okay, so in this module, you learn about why ethics matter. You learn about the different here you have exercises where you identify what is AI, what is generated. But I think what is really interesting here is when we talk about bias, we actually put you into a first-person situation where the student experiences being the victim of bias. So I'll just show you what it looks like right here. This is basically a school security officer who has flagged the student for inappropriate behavior.
Notice, your behavior has been flagged as a potential disruption risk. An automated report has been submitted to the school administration. Possible consequences include detention, suspension, or expulsion.
Why did you flag me?
Your behavior matches 82% of prior disruption patterns. Fast hallway transitions, unusual grouping behavior, limited eye contact with staff. This is consistent with students who later caused class disruption.
I mean, you're pretty much describing every student in every single hallway. What kind of data is this, and why are you using it to flag me?
My training set includes 10 years of incident data collected from hallway cameras, attendance records, classroom seating charts, and teacher behavior reports. Includes location tracking, clothing color patterns, audio tone,
and color patterns. I don't think this is fair. So then the student goes through
your behavior
and then has some reflection here. What was OP1's judgment? Was it fair? Why or why not? Do you think that the AI used correct data in its reasoning? Explain your reasoning. So, it's really, we're able to put the students into the shoes, of someone and give them an experience of AI bias.
And I ask you in the audience, how is that going to lead to deep understanding of the concept of AI bias? How is it going to lead to transfer compared with the teacher talking about it, compared with watching a video about what AI bias is? What's going to be the difference there in terms of the learning outcomes for the student?
No, this is fantastic. Like right now, the first thing I was thinking of is like, well, where are you getting your data from? And yeah, I was thinking, just the comments that it was making, it really got you to think like, hey, what's going on here? And again, that critical thinking and understanding now what bias is. Maybe students didn't quite understand what bias is, or maybe, like you mentioned, the video or the slide, was just very brief about what bias is and gives one single example. But here, hearing a conversation, and now all of a sudden you get to interact. Like for our folks that are listening to this, you got to hear that interaction that Eric had with OBS1 officer. For those of you that are listening, the video as it was speaking, I felt like I was getting singled out. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, everybody dresses like this, or you can't, just because my eyes, or the way that my limited eye contact with teachers, now you're assuming that I'm going to be a risk. And it really, I'm going to say that it really got me like hyped up, where I wanted to answer the question, like, what part of this is bias? And it really, it helps you internalize this. You're living it. You're seeing an example, and that really takes the learning, Austin, like you said, to a whole new level. And I think that that's something that is fantastic that you guys are doing.
Imagine a Socratic discussion that stems from this, where the students had a chance to get into some of the different roles. If they were the principal or the teacher, how might they respond if it was based upon flawed data, and get into different perspectives? Some of the questions that can come up for the students. I think this is unbelievable fodder for discussion. That will be a rich discussion that really will bring the students in. I think that this is, again, I keep on going back to it, but the students are going to be interested in engaging in this way. And again, what we're doing in the classroom, some of the things engage, some of them don't. We know that. But this one I really think is gonna hit the students in the right space, that they're going to be excited. They're going to want to be engaging in MegaMinds rooms again and again. And we know from brain-based learning and brain-based teaching, if they want to be there, they're going to get a lot more out of it.
I just wanted to show this quick example. There's another way that we tackle learning through immersion, and this is also through empathy. So to the right here, we have you get to talk to an AI who's been unfairly impacted by AI when her school used it to decide who got into a special program. And you get to hear her story and ask her questions about it. So let's try it.
Hey, I'm Jordan. I can tell you what happened to me, if you're curious. It's kind of a weird story. What would you like to know?
What happened to you?
Well, I applied to this prestigious school leadership program. I had strong grades, leadership experience, and was really involved in my community. But I got denied. And later found out the AI system seemed to favor applicants from wealthier schools in certain neighborhoods. It felt really confusing and disappointing, like I was invisible. How does that sound to you?
Oh man, that doesn't sound fair at all. I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. I felt overlooked and kind of invisible, even though I met all the qualifications. What do you think about how the system made decisions in that way?
Well, obviously, I don't think it's fair. I think that they need to change how they go about picking the candidates.
I totally get that. What changes do you think would make the process fair? Or how would you improve it?
Wow. Like, for me right now, just even as a teacher, or being able to put this in front of my students, just again, going back to the type of conversations that you're having, the student is having to think, and they're learning, and they're hearing like a real world scenario and really understanding it. And again, in a very personal way, and maybe in a way that they might have had that experience, but they didn't know that they had that experience, or maybe they didn't know that these experiences existed, and now they get to talk and get that feedback. This is fantastic to me. I'm blown away by this. And again, going back to like what my friend Huston said, is that going back to the classroom and having those conversations go even deeper and wider really takes that learning to that whole other level. So this is something that is fantastic.
I totally agree with you. If you think about the student experience, and if you think about the chance that they know somebody who was discriminated against in some way, somebody who was in a store and the security guard was after them a little bit more based upon certain appearance or certain clothing that they had, I think that this touches upon a lot of real life experiences in ways that tugs at the heartstrings. I mean, this is getting into social emotional learning. This is getting into empathy. This is getting into discrimination and just racism and so many other aspects of society. This could be connected to current events. I mean, imagine the students go through this, and then you know what? For homework, find something in the news that connected with what Jordan was experiencing. Wow, I could just imagine the explosive conversation would ensue the next day. It would be really exciting. It'll be one of those moments where, and all of us teachers have felt it, you just feel the energy in the room, right? And that's where I think this can lead to that in exciting ways for students to get a different way to learn and a deeper way to learn about bias, which is exciting and important.
Yeah, most definitely. And again, for our listeners, please make sure you do watch the video so you can see how Eric and the team at MegaMinds have laid this out so you can see that immersive experience. But just listening to it, I hope that you get a sense of what the students will be able to interact with and how they'll be able to learn and not just as a consumer, but they're actively learning, they're replying, they're responding, they're learning, they're collaborating. It really takes that to that next level. So I'm really excited to see from 2023 to now, Eric, the work that you and Austin and the rest of the MegaMinds team have done to really take the platform to that next level and really, getting future ready yourselves through MegaMind to get our students future ready. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, but I think that this is something that is fantastic and much needed now within our education space. And so I love this. As we get closer to wrapping up, I did want to ask you, Eric, I know that you had the opportunity to make it out to the White House earlier this year. So I want you to tell me a little bit about how that experience was, because I know that I did see some other familiar faces also there within, kind of our circle of colleagues and peers and so on. But I want to know your experience. What was it? How was how was your experience, and what was the message for our education system as far as AI, generative AI within our schools?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, we were invited out to the White House for the Presidential AI Challenge announcement, and our MegaMinds is a signatory company to the AI Task Force. So we have offered up the AI ethics module that you saw and more. We have a whole 6-module bundle that covers all the different aspects of AI literacy. We've offered that up for free for every single school and district in America to use. Not only to participate in things like the Presidential AI Challenge, but because we think it's a very important skill for students to learn. And as I mentioned earlier, AI literacy is going to be table stakes, right, to get a job by the time these kids graduate. So being there, no matter what you think of the current administration, I believe what they're doing with this challenge and with their efforts to promote AI literacy in K-12, there's only positives there. And I think the fact that they're taking a proactive stance is going to get a lot of districts thinking differently and maybe perhaps acting on it, where they might be more hesitant otherwise. We'll see what the net result is. But I think it's a net positive thing for sure.
And it's not easy necessarily as a teacher. I mean, I've delved pretty deeply into AI, and I know Alfonso, you have as well. And we've got some pathways, and some specific channels that we can think of to teach it. But for a lot of either schools or teachers who are not quite sure how to approach it, the MegaMinds AI Literacy Bundle is just a great turnkey solution. We're offering a really easy path to learn about some of the basics, to learn about the ethical and bias, issues, to learn about some of the careers, and then to eventually develop a solution to a real world problem. So it wraps in a capstone project as a PBL, and we've offered that up as a way for teachers just to be able to plug and play with it. We're also partnering with code.org on their Hour of AI next week, and we're very proud to be a partner of theirs, and we're offering up the AI ethics module plus the rest of the bundle, but the AI ethics module as a great way for the students to get some great exposure to that. So, our goal here is to really be helping in terms of, again, we talk about future ready, but this has now become an essential skill. Yep. We see it in so many different aspects of society. In Shopify, the employees need to justify if they want to hire somebody in their department that the AI can't do that job. We see just so many examples of it. And so to be able to provide a turnkey solution that the students are going to be excited about. We're very proud to be able to offer that to students in the United States.
Excellent. That is fantastic. And so just to clarify, like, so then anybody, like not just through this year, but the AI literacy bundle will be available to any educator um, at no cost.
At no cost. They just
Oh,
come to our website, go megaminds.com, fill out a Google form, and we provision accounts for however many teachers they want using this
oh
module.
my gosh, that is fantastic. We'll make sure that we link that in the show notes too. That way, our listeners, anybody like just from classroom teachers to district decision makers that listen to the show, they'll be able to find that link and then go ahead and redirect them there to MegaMinds. That way, they can fill that out for their district and all their campuses, because I think that this is going to be something that is wonderful, and it's a great way to learn, like you said, offer that turnkey solution, and also a way that the teacher, I feel, would not feel overwhelmed that they're going to have to be creating something or be presenting, as they may not feel comfortable. But now there's something that is there that is available that the students can just easily hop on and start having these conversations and start learning about AI literacy. And I think that this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Eric. Austin, thank you so much for being here today and just sharing the amazing work that you're doing through MegaMinds. I really appreciate it. And we'll make sure we link your info and in the show notes too as well. So anybody that is listening, will make sure connect with you, Eric, and connect with you, my friend, all the way in Colombia, Austin, which is fantastic. And I mean, thank you so much. But
It's our pleasure. I mean, just to listen to the way that you can just have some insightful questions and comments about how we're going about it. It's just incredible to see the way your brain works around looking at something and being able to analyze how this would really be to different classrooms and different settings. It's a pleasure to speak with other educators like yourself. So
excellent.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But hey, we're not done yet. As you know, we always love to end the show with the last 3 questions. Now, Austin, you're already familiar with these questions. I know you, maybe people, if you guys listen to episode 340, especially if you're Spanish speaking, because the episode is in Spanish. I know Austin answered some of those questions there. But again, now you can probably do the same answers in English, Austin, for all our friends. Eric, I know you're familiar with the format as far as these last 3 questions. So let's go ahead and start with you, Austin. We'll start first here. So as we know, every superhero has a weakness or a pain point. So for Superman, kryptonite was his weakness. So I want to ask you, Austin, in the current state of education, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
Me personally, as an educator, I would say I've been playing around with I've been in AI circles. I've actually got the last session tonight, and struggling with developing my first AI agent. And I think it's working through my frustration and sticking with it. I think that's been my I think my weakness lately. It's I'm not the most technical. I'm fairly technical, but it's been a big challenge, and I've enjoyed it. And I've been really trying to document the process of how does it feel to not be able to get to where I want. And so that's been something I've been trying to turn from a weakness into something I can showcase and highlight, saying, you know what, I can be vulnerable. I can say, I'm really not getting this to where I want it to be, but it's definitely been a challenge.
Oh, I like that. It's got productive struggle written all over it. After our episode about productive struggle, we'll talk about going through productive struggle myself, but it's all part of that learning experience. And now once you kind of get over that hump, it's like, whoa, like I got this. We did it. We came over it, and now we continue to learn and move forward. So it's awesome. All right, Eric, how about yourself? What in the current state of education would you say is your current edu-kryptonite?
My personal edu-kryptonite or okay.
Yeah, your personal.
I think it's just I think it's just for myself, I think it's just overcoming my fears, and trying to get a product out into the market is not easy. And, it's a roller coaster every day, certainly with, imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of that involved. So I think that's my kryptonite, overcoming, just putting my head down and just trying to keep pushing forward. That's the way I deal with it, at least.
There you go. And you know what, Eric, I really applaud that answer. I mean, for somebody like you that has your background, and then, of course, like you mentioned now, building a platform and putting it out there, just showing that vulnerability. And for all our listeners, I mean, you're talking to a founder here. And sometimes, we see what's on LinkedIn. Of course, we see the successes. We see, like, hey, the platform's doing great. Hey, Eric was at the White House and so on. But to hear somebody from with your background and doing what you're doing and still say that you are struggle with that imposter syndrome, I think that's something that is very useful for not only myself but for our listeners too, to say, hey, you know what, it's like I'm not the only one that might be going through that and struggling, and you just work through it and move forward. So thank you so much for showing that, being a little vulnerable there too as well. And Austin, you too, showing that vulnerability there, creating your agent and so on. So it's fantastic hearing this from just amazing people that I know people see, like that finished, polished product there on LinkedIn or anywhere that you're posting. All right. Question number 2, Eric, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Eric, if you could have a billboard right smack in the middle of New Jersey where everybody can see it, what would your billboard have on it and why?
Okay, well, obviously it would be about MegaMinds, but the tagline would be "Make School Cool." That's it, and it would be just "MegaMinds make school cool."
Oh, yeah.
It's that I think it speaks to the engagement factor that Austin has been talking about this episode. Making kids excited about learning again. And that has a dramatic effect. I will. One thing I didn't mention, but the intervention study that we were talking about earlier, that teacher noted the attendance improved throughout the semester. Her kids started coming because they were enjoying learning. So that's making school cool is important.
That's a win. I love it. I'll take it. That's a great billboard. All right, Austin, in Colombia, right smack in the middle of Colombia, where everybody that drives by or walks by can see, what would your billboard say or have on it and why?
Well, it would probably be a newfangled billboard with a new technology where paint would be actually flying out of the billboard, right? And it would say, "Get messy," and be willing to get messy and try something new and take a risk. And I think that normalizing messy and failure is a message that we just can't hear enough. So it would say, "Get messy," and there'd be kids, paint everywhere and different things, and adults and a superintendent and different people all getting messy together.
I love it. That is great. And because it is, I mean, it does get messy, but in the end, you get to have fun and you learn from all that messiness too as well. And it's all part of learning, and I love it. All right, last question. Austin, I'll start off with you. If you could trade places with a single person for a day, who would that be and why?
Single person for a day. I would say that I would. Well, I'm a big foodie. Some of you might know me that I'm a very big foodie. I love to cook. I love going to supermarkets and public markets, and I'd love to trade places with Gordon Ramsay and have the opportunity to get into different kitchens and expose myself to different chefs and different people. So that would be me, just to learn and see through his eyes how he approaches different scenarios, how he combines ingredients in creative ways. That would be a wild and novel experience for me.
Nice. Great choice. All right, Eric, how about yourself? If you could trade places with a person for a day, who would that be and why?
Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about an experiment that we're running right now on our platform. So we are bringing deceased characters back to life with with their AI avatars. So we are doing experiments right now. We have a room where we've basically brought back to life impressionist painters. Like, you can talk to Salvador Dali, you can talk to different folks, and so we're doing some experiments where you're able to have conversations with historical figures about what they think about current day situations. So I think, and that got me thinking is, we're creating a module for our Martin Luther King Day, where you actually get to talk to Dr. King. And, that just got me thinking about, wow, what potential we have here to really, to talk about bringing learning to life, to really put that. So that's all coming. So look out for that in a few weeks. But So it's not necessarily about trading places, but it's about bringing those people to me.
Nice. Hey, I didn't expect that twist on it. Like, asking them about how, they see the world today. I think that's something that is fantastic because usually it's like, okay, we bring them back. Let's talk about impressionism. Let's talk about this and so on. But I think that's something that's great, part of learning. And again, like you mentioned, just being able to have a historical figure that you can engage with and have those conversations. Who would have thought, that this is where we would be? But obviously, we keep moving forward and the technology is just getting better. And then we have some wonderful people such as yourselves, both in the ed tech space and the education space that are just bringing that immersiveness into the learning. And I think that's something that is great. And I look forward to seeing what MegaMinds brings in 2026 for the education space. So thank you both for being here and just sharing just this amazing platform, the amazing learning that we just got to see today and experience. So thank you, Eric, and thank you, Austin, for today. We really appreciate you. And for our audience members, thank you so much for being just amazing supporters of the show. Please make sure that you visit our website at myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 340 plus episodes that we have, where I promise you'll find some little gems that you can sprinkle onto what you are already doing great. And again, a big shout out to our sponsors, Book Creator, Yellow Dig, EduAid, and Peelback Education. Thank you so much for believing in our mission. And until next time, my friends, don't forget, stay techie.